Ladies and gentlemen, it was with great pleasure that I introduce our keynote speaker, Assistant Secretary Antonio G. Lambino II.
Morning. Na umaga po sa inyong lahat, maayong buntag kaninyong tanan. To the board and members, brokers, and investors of the COL Financial Group, and to everyone gathered here today, especially Edward Lee, Ed Martinez, April Tan, Juanis Barredo, Marvin Fausto, of course, Ms. Cathy Yang also is here. It is my pleasure to be here this morning with some of the most active participants in the country's stock exchange industry. The Department of Finance is one with you in helping Filipinos secure their financial future. Let me start with the vision of the Filipino people for their own country. This was crafted by NEDA during the Aquino administration and adopted by the Doterra administration. Ambisyon Natin 2040. Aligned with this vision is the government's commitment to bring down poverty incidence from 21.6% in 2015 to 13 to 15% by 2022. This means 1 million Filipinos lifting themselves from poverty every year until 2022 and eliminating extreme poverty by 2040. Next year, or shortly thereafter, and ahead of schedule, we graduate from lower to upper middle income country status, joining the ranks of Thailand and China, and other countries such as Poland and South Korea were able to take the next step from upper middle income to high income country status within 15 years or less. Malaysia will soon be joining the ranks of developed nations. What's most important about all of this is that we can beat extreme poverty within a generation if we stay on course and continue to invest in the right things. And we are doing all we can to set ourselves up for success. The Economic Development Cluster, headed by Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez, in partnership with other agencies, is contributing to this journey to high-income country status by achieving the 0 to 10-point socio-economic agenda. The green boxes on the screen are those on which we have made progress, and the yellow have yet to be accomplished. Let me focus on some of those we've made significant progress. First are our macroeconomic policies. In 2015, the World Bank did a report asking investors for their top concerns preventing them from doing business in the Philippines. 14 years ago, the number one issue was macroeconomic instability. In 2017, the World Economic Forum updated this survey, and we find that macroeconomic instability is no longer an issue. Sorry, did I say 2015 earlier? I meant 2005. No. In 2005, 14 years ago, the number one issue was macroeconomic stability. Now, it is no longer the case. People are more concerned about non-macro issues like inefficiency of government service, infrastructure, and corruption. We are now moving from a stabilization regime to policies that promote long-term growth and prosperity, with an emphasis on increasing equal opportunity. Recently, Standard & Poor's, one of the world's most reputable credit rating agencies, raised our sovereign rating from BBB to BBB+. This is the highest investment grade rating we have ever received in our economic history, and just one notch away from the sterling A rating category, The upgrade puts the Philippines in the same category as Mexico, Peru, and Thailand, and above countries like Italy and Portugal. With our more reliable credit standing, we'll be able to secure even cheaper loans, maintain low interest rates on the bonds we offer in international markets, and save money that we can invest in education, social programs, and other priority projects. Even as we have scaled up our economic investments, we continue to manage our obligations with great prudence. We have brought down our debt to GDP ratio. Ito po yung laki ng ating utang kumpara sa laki ng ating ekonomiya. Now, the size of our borrowings relative to the size of our growing economy. And we have brought this down to 41.9% in 2018, from a high of 74.4% in 2004. The outlook for 2019 is 41.4%. We have taken great care to ensure that the projects for which we borrow yield substantial economic returns and are funded through diversified and highly concessional financing. Thus, speculation that our ambitious infrastructure program will cause us to fall into a debt trap are unfounded. The government responded to the problem of elevated inflation, felt late last year, by decisively implementing measures to increase the supply of food. Inflation rates began to decelerate to 4.4% in January and further slowed down to only 3.2% in May. And in the recent year-on-year inflation for the month of June, it further slowed down to 2.7%. And we expect to stay within the target range of 2 to 4% this year and in subsequent years. Among the first economic reform measures pursued by the Duterte administration was the comprehensive tax reform program. This is the first time the country embarked on revenue reforms without being forced to do so by an external party or a looming economic crisis. So we are able to do it on our own terms. Nobody is telling us to do it or how to do it. The first package of the comprehensive tax reform program was passed at the end of 2017. The effects of the train law were immediate and broadly beneficial, reducing income tax rates for 99% of individual taxpayers. Kung titingnan po natin itong slide, ito po ay isang ehemplo ng call center agent. Dati po, bago po mag-train, ang kanyang tax due ay 22,590 pesos. Nung maipasa po ang train starting 2018, ang kanyang tax due ay 0. Ibig sabihin, may savings po siya at additional take-home pay na 22,590 spread out over the year. Filipinos earning below 250,000 pesos annually are now exempt from paying personal income taxes, while all workers earning above it, or almost all, except those earning 8 million and above, receive a month's extra take-home pay each year. This was not felt by many last year due to elevated inflation, to which large spikes in the prices of imported oil and key agricultural commodities made the largest contributions. This year, however, with inflation in check and well within the target range, wage earners are feeling the increased take-home pay. Nakinig po ako sa isang focus group discussion kasama mga empleyado ng mga BPO dito sa May Ortigas. And in no uncertain terms, sabi po nila, nararamdaman na nila yung additional cash sa kanilang bulsa. But, this is very important. Ang Pilipino po ay hindi pa po sanay mag-invest at mag-save. 90% of additional income is spent. Ang gusto po natin, mas marami pong Pilipino ang tumulad sa inyo at matuto pong mag-save at mag-invest. Despite elevated prices, the increased purchasing power of our consumers resulted in strong growth in demand. Dahil nga po ginastos. No? And is evidenced by an impressive rise in profitability of our retail companies. Pinakamalaki po dyan, mga restaurant at saka mga land developer and mga malls. No? Train also exempted medicines for diabetes, hypertension, and high cholesterol from VAT. Unfortunately, according to the Department of Health, these are becoming more and more widespread conditions, not just among senior citizens, but also for those who are younger. And Train raised excise taxes on cigarettes and introduced taxes on sweetened beverages as health measures. We raised excise taxes on petroleum products, which had not been adjusted since 1997. Nag-umpisa po ako magmaneho mga 1997. I was a junior or senior in high school. At yung binabayaran ko pong excise tax sa gasolina noon ay pareho pa rin dun sa binabayaran ko noong 2017. It was the first adjustment in around 20 years. And petroleum products are disproportionately consumed by higher income households dahil itong mga household po ang may mga pribadong sasakyan. While sometimes along EDSA or C5, you will find private vehicles with only one person in the vehicle. Those who take public transportation share the vehicle with, if it's a jeepney, 19 other people, kung puno. Or if it's a bus, 49 other people, kung puno. Train mandated the implementation of a fuel marking program to curb oil smuggling. Nag-uumpisa na po yung implementation dyan. At nakikita po natin, tumataas na ang mga collections natin sa imported oil. So, nababawasan na po ang smuggling, or at least this is a strong indicator that that is happening. Estate and donors taxes were lowered to a single tax rate of 6%. Dati po, 20 and 15%, no, yung ating estate at saka donor taxes. Ngayon, 6% na lamang. This frees up real estate to be used more productively for investment and job creation. To help low-income households from the effects of rising prices, social mitigating measures were designed as part of the Train Law. The law provided a robust and recurrent revenue flow that supported our economic investments in modern infrastructure and expanded social services. In 2018, we exceeded Train's revenue goal, collecting 108.1% of the annual target. Combined with better tax administration, the 2018 tax effort rose to 14.7% of GDP. This is the highest it has been in over 20 years. Third, reforms are also being introduced to improve efficiency and accountability. The Department of Interior and Local Government, for instance, has streamlined local government processes through the use of modern technology. The DTI, Department of Trade and Industry, for its part, is re-engineering the process of starting a business through Project One. We will now have a one central business portal that will be available online and through mobile phone, transforming the business registration experience into a convenient facility available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All these reforms, in combination with the ease of doing business law enacted last year, will greatly enhance the ease of doing business in our country. For the first time since 2005, we have eliminated the problem of underspending that hounded our ability to grow. Our expenditure effort in 2018 reached 19.6% of GDP, the highest we have achieved in the past 28 years. This is mainly because for the first time in our history, we exceeded 5% of GDP in infrastructure spending last year. Matagal na po nating target ang 5% or higher. Ngayon lang po natin nagawa yan. This is double the average over the last 50 years. We expect to bring this up to 7% of GDP by 2022. And as you all know, infrastructure modernization has the largest multiplier effects in the economy and will provide a strong stimulus to keep our growth rate high into the foreseeable future. Ang infrastructure po ay naglalapit sa ating mga kabahayan, sa ating mga kabuhayan. No? So not only does it make things more efficient, it also improves the quality of life of Filipino families. Instead of spending 3 to 4 hours in traffic per day, we can spend more time with our loved ones. Actually, catch our children before they fall asleep and join them for dinner. Yan po yung mga benefits. No, it's not just the economy, it's also the quality of life of the Filipino family. Ang mga dividendo naman, no, yung mga narimit po ng GOCCs, government-owned and controlled corporations, also contributed to the more robust revenue flow the government now enjoys. In 2018, last year po, dividends from GOCCs amounted to 48 billion pesos, the highest collection we have ever had from state-run firms. In the first half of 2019, dividends have already reached another record, amounting to 61.3 billion pesos. Today, the Philippine economy is strong and ready to soar. Our economy grew at an average of 6.5% during the first 11 quarters of the Duterte administration. This impressive performance was achieved despite increased global uncertainty. Nabanggit po kanina yung trade tensions, no, sa ibang mga bansa. A weak agriculture sector, a spike in world oil prices, and a brief bout with elevated inflation. Despite all of those headwinds, we have grown at an average of 6.5%. That is around double what the World Bank sees in other regions of the world. The Asian region, of course, is the fastest growing region in the world. So this makes us one of the fastest growing economies in the fastest growing region of the world. I'll mention a few thoughts later about the 5.6% growth rate in the first quarter of 2019. From an average of 6.9% in 2010 to 2015, the latest data for April 2019 showed unemployment dipping further to 5.2%. Unemployment is now at its lowest in 40 years. From 27.6% in the first half of 2015, poverty incidence has significantly declined to 21% in the first half of 2018. We are waiting for the full year number for 2018. The goal of economic reforms is not simply growth. The final goal is to make growth inclusive, create more opportunity for all, and continue to reduce poverty until extreme poverty is eradicated. As for the corporate industry, the fastest growing markets are in poor or middle income countries. And the stock market is an important part of the economy as it plays a pivotal role in the growth of industry and commerce. A rising stock market is the sign of a developing industrial sector and a growing economy. That's why the government is actively collaborating with private sector actors such as COL Financial to foster understanding and be able to address concerns. Many of the bold reforms that we have pushed for were actually recommendations from the Filipino people. Since 2016, the Duterte administration has been conducting Sulong Pilipinas, a consultative conference through which the government receives feedback on its plans and programs, as well as actionable recommendations that can guide policy and reform moving forward. The train law of the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program, the National ID Law, the Build Program, the Ease of Doing Business Act, and the Universal Healthcare Law and its financing through sin taxes are just some of the products of the collaboration of the government and the people. We have accomplished a lot, but still much needs to be done. let me share with you some of the priorities of the Duterte administration's economic team for the next 3 years. The major priority is to accelerate implementation of the Build, Build, Build program and fast-track the implementation of priority socio-economic programs. We achieved around 5.5% of GDP spending on infrastructure in 2018, and we are on track to achieve 7% of GDP in 3 years' time. Infrastructure has the largest multiplier effects, tulad ng nasabi natin kanina, bringing SMEs closer to retail markets and children closer to schools. Because we were forced to operate on a reenacted budget in the first part of this year, the government was not able to spend 1 billion pesos per day in the first quarter of 2019. The economic managers, together with the infrastructure cluster, have formulated a bold catch-up program to achieve a GDP growth rate of over 6% this year. Another priority is to pursue economic reforms to increase foreign direct investments and jobs, where the priority bills are amendments to the Public Service Act and Retail Trade Act to open up the economy further and increase investments. We are also mandated to pursue the remaining tax reforms to ensure sustainable funding for the infrastructure program and for social spending. 4 major packages remain. I'm happy to report na mga 5 na po sa ating mga legislators ang nag-file ng lahat ng packages na ito. Hindi pa po nag-uumpisa yung hearings, hindi pa nga po nag-umpisa ang Kongreso, ay nag-submit na po ang ating mga legislators ng kanilang versions ng mga bills po na ito. Package 1B of the tax reform program, kasi package 1 po yung train. No? Wala po dyan. Unahin ko na po yung 1B. This consists of a general tax amnesty, pero kailangan po kasabay ang lifting of absolute bank secrecy in cases of fraud and the automatic exchange of information. Last year, the President signed into law a tax amnesty for delinquencies and for estate. So ito po yung natira, ito po yung na-veto, yung general amnesty, dahil hindi po kasama yung lifting of absolute bank secrecy. 2 bansa na lang po sa mundo ang may absolute bank secrecy. Yung isa po doon, ang Pilipinas, yung pangalawa, ang Lebanon. Pati po ang Switzerland, wala na pong absolute bank secrecy. Package 2. Ito pong package na ito ay ang Corporate Income Tax and Incentives Reform. Kilala po siya bilang Trabaho Bill or Train 2. Ang gusto po ni Joey Salceda, ang bagong chair ng Ways and Means Committee sa lower house, gusto po niyang tawaging CITIRA, Corporate Income Tax and Incentives Reform Act. Ang CITIRA po daw sa Sanskrit ay ibig sabihin, beautiful. So yan po ang pangalan na binigay ni Congressman Salceda sa Package 2. Nandyan po ang Package 3. Yan po ay Property Valuation Reform to make the system more equitable and efficient and transparent. Alam po ninyo, yung problema natin sa property valuation ay napakarami po ang gumagawa ng valuation. Mga 20 ahensya, kasama na rin po ang mga private assessors ang gumagawa ng valuation. Kaya po nangyayari, naiipit sa korte yung mga right-of-way issues na mga 20 taon minsan. Imbis na mapakinabangan na po ang rail system na ginagawa po yung alignment, ay naiipit po sa korte ng matagal dahil lahat po ng mga parties ay may sariling valuation. Gusto po natin gawin, iisa lang, a standard internationally recognized based on international good practices, yung ating valuation system. But let me be clear, for those of you who are concerned about real property tax rates, ang ating pong mga local government unit pa rin ang may mandato para iset yung tax rate at saka yung assessment level. 3 po ang elemento ng real property taxes para i-compute ito. Ang valuation, ang assessment level, at ang tax rate. So ang gusto lang po nating i-reform yung valuation. Pwede pong palitan ng LGU yung tax rate or yung assessment level para pantay pa rin yung babayaran or tataas or bababa. So this is still an LGU mandate and completely within the power of the local governments. Package 4 proposes the rationalization of capital income taxation to address the multiple rates and different tax treatments and exemptions on capital income and other financial instruments and investments. Isa po yan sa mga gusto natin i-highlight ngayon dahil isa po sa mga concerns ito ng mga investor ng COL Financial. All of the packages will help us ensure faster GDP growth, lower poverty, and provide more opportunities for all Filipinos, and of course, create a more conducive environment for businesses to grow. They will also help achieve in full the 0 to 10-point socio-economic agenda and allow us to forge ahead to ambition natin 2040, where no Filipino family will go hungry and we have zero extreme poverty. Pero siguro pwede kong i-expound ng kaunti yung mga corporate income tax reform natin and package 4, yung financial income taxes. Yung package 2 o yung SITIRA is designed to encourage even more competitive investments to enter our country. The reduction of corporate income tax rates gradually from 30%, yan po ang pinakamataas sa ASEAN region, yung ating corporate income tax rate. We want to lower that to 20% gradually, and it will bring our tax regime closer to the regional average, and the rationalization of fiscal incentives will create a level playing field for our enterprises and attract new players to compete. It will improve and modernize the country's long-neglected corporate tax system and open the door for enterprises to flourish, especially those that do not benefit from tax incentives. To be clear, we are not eliminating fiscal incentives. Yan po ang sinasabi ng marami na hindi po naiintindihan yung package or hindi pa po napag-aralan ng maigi. We want to keep granting incentives for the right reasons and for the right investments. We want these incentives to be performance-based, time-bound, targeted, and fully transparent. Nabanggit ko po, tayo po ang may pinakamataas na corporate income tax rate sa ASEAN. This makes it difficult for majority of the country's businesses to become competitive. There are some 900,000 corporate taxpayers in the Philippines that are micro, small, or medium enterprises. And hundreds of thousands of businesses pay the regular rate of 30%. In large contrast, the few large companies that enjoy fiscal incentives, and they are less than 1% of companies in the Philippines, pay 6 to 13% versus the 30% that everybody else pays. Having the highest CIT rate in the ASEAN region puts the Philippines at a disadvantage against our neighbors with regard to domestic and foreign investment. We will improve the competitiveness of all businesses, especially MSMEs, and encourage robust activity, investment, and compliance. Huli, yung package 4. This aims to redesign the financial sector taxation and make investments in this area simpler and more attractive. The reform aims to reduce the number of tax rates from 80 to 40. These variations in tax treatment are based on these variations in the tax rates and the unequal tax treatment of comparable financial instruments between financial institutions and non-financial institutions offering the same service or product, or between interest and dividend, give rise to arbitrage and leveraging. Package 4 further aims to make the taxes on passive income more equitable among different instruments. It harmonizes and lowers tax rates for interest income, dividends, and capital gains to 15%. Unifying and lowering the tax rates on interest income will benefit 75% of deposit account holders who are mostly small savers. Ang tax rate po sa interest income ng isang small saver na kailangan pong galawin ng kanilang funds dahil pasukan or dahil malapit na ang Pasko, yung interest income tax rate po ay 20%. Yung tax rate doon sa mga hindi po ginagalaw ang kanilang investment for 5 years or longer, 0%. So hindi po patas ang ating system. Further, to support capital market development, we propose a gradual reduction in the stock transactions tax from 0.6% to 0.1% and the removal of the initial public offering tax. Documentary stamp taxes will also be rationalized to promote capital mobility. Doon po sa mga unlisted na hindi na po yung first purchase, gusto natin wala ng DST. We want to eliminate it. A single 5% gross receipts tax will be levied on banks, quasi-banks, and certain non-bank financial intermediaries to simplify the tax system of the industry. We will also support the insurance industry by reducing rates for non-life insurance and harmonizing the taxation of pre-need, pension, life, and HMO insurance. The reform is broadly revenue neutral, and the larger objective is to encourage savings, investment, and help Filipino families secure their own financial future. With all of these accomplishments and the passage of the remaining reforms, we can ensure that the Philippines' growth will continue and lead us to Ambition Natin 2040. Our economy remains strong and is surging to greater heights. With your unrelenting support and contribution to the stock exchange industry, we will build on this momentum and continue to push for our massive economic investments. Build, and cultivate a happy, healthy, and productive workforce. If I may end with this cartoon, it captures the whole spirit of the reforms that we are trying to put in place. Essentially, what we're trying to do is try to even the playing field, to provide equal access to opportunity. Marami pong Pilipino ang pinapanganak dito po sa kanan. Magandang pamilya, they get the right nutrition in the first 1,000 days. Their families invest in high-quality education. Marami po silang nakikilala habang nag-aaral na nagiging network nila, na tumutulong po sa pagiging successful nila well into the future. Ngunit mas marami pong Pilipino ang pinapanganak dito po sa kaliwa. They don't have the advantages that those on the right have just because of the accident of where they are born. And what we would like to do is, through the reforms, through the comprehensive tax reform program, create steps on the left side to build steps by finding and putting in place the financing to invest in more and better infrastructure. Some children have to walk hours to get to school. Others ride in air-conditioned vehicles. We want equal access to healthcare. Kaya po tayo may universal healthcare law, and that's why we're financing it through sin taxes. We also want to broaden the capital markets so more Filipinos, as they start earning more, can invest more for their future as well. So yan po ang layunin natin. Maging mas patas at mas marangya ang buhay ng bawat Pilipino. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Assistant Secretary Tony Lambino II. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support ASEC's Lambino's programs, please feel free to approach any of our officers outside the registration booth. Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite our guest moderator to join Assistant Secretary Tony on stage for the Q&A portion. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the Anchor Managing Editor of ABS-CBN News Channel, Ms. Kathy Yang.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning, everyone. Mukhang full house. Thank you so much for coming on a Saturday. How's everybody? Please, Tony, take a seat.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, you know, that was a really comprehensive presentation.
A bit long, sorry.
No, that's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine. It put into context everything that I practically went through from the time the administration began. 3 years had passed, and then you gave an outlook for the next 3. But connect the dots for us, Tony, because, and I know you wanted to expound on this, from Q1, GDP fell to a 4-year low. That's 5.6, still pretty good when you compare that with the rest of the ASEAN, but it's slowed to a 4-year low. So connect the dots for us, 5.6%, and the title of your presentation, Surging to Greater Heights. What is the government doing in the interim to bridge those gaps?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Kathy. It's very important to underscore the reason for the 5.6. There are several, but the main explanatory variable is the reenacted budget. As I mentioned earlier, the government was not able to invest 1 billion pesos per day. You know what a billion is? It's very hard to imagine a billion pesos. Secretary Dominguez, when he explains this, he said, let's say an Innova is around 1 million. Yeah. So a billion is 1,000 Innovas. So yan ang hindi po natin na-invest every day, no, in health services.
How long was the delay?
It was around, I think, in the end, it was around 4 months.
4 months, right.
Yeah, so kaya po pumasok tayo sa 5.6%, yung atin pong estimate, kung nagastos po natin, na-invest natin yung 1 billion per day, ay nasa 6.6 to 7.2% sana tayo in the first quarter.
That's a full percentage
That's
loss.
right, at least.
On our GDP.
Correct.
So now that Q2 is coming out on August 8th, can we expect something much higher?
Well, what
above
we've-
6%.
Yes, what we've heard from our infrastructure agencies is that the ramping up of spending has already started. Of course, the weather is not the best compared to the first quarter. No? For those of you who are involved in the construction industry, we all know that the first quarter is the best time to build. But still, humahabol pa rin tayo. Plus, there were elections. So usually, there's additional spending during election season. If we put those two together, we're looking at a better number, or we're expecting one.
How much better? Do you have maybe a trading range?
I'll leave the forecasting to the Bangko Central and
Yeah, because it's also
and the
important.
NEDA.
On
Yes.
this very same day, the GDP is out, the Bangko Central lays on its policy decision. And investors here in this room are waiting for that next move. What is the preference of the Finance Department when it comes to monetary policy and the way that it helps fuel more growth in the economy, now that we're way behind because of the delayed budget?
Well, I think the Monetary Board's conversations are highly confidential. Secretary Dominguez is a member of the Monetary Board, but that is something I think we really need to wait for a decision from them, no, in terms of what they will do with regard to the policy rate. No? That being said, the NEDA has already mentioned that they expect good performance for the whole year, and that with the additional investment in the infrastructure sector, and DPWH is up to the task according to Secretary Villar, and they have performed very well over the past few years. Secretary Tugade as well, in terms of rolling out more of the large-scale infrastructure projects. Putting those together, we do expect to still come in at 6% or above for the year. That's the fighting target.
The fighting target.
Yes.
I'll keep tabs of that. About those infrastructure projects, now that 3 years have passed and there's 3 years left, what are the priority projects? Have you vetted them? I understand that Secretary Pernia said he'll have a look again and see which ones will take priority in the next 3 years, because presumably there have been delays already, so some have to go, some have to take a step back. Put us up to speed on what you know from the infrastructure side.
Well, I will defer on the details to the Build team, but let me say this. On the infrastructure side, we have not performed as well in a very, very long time, no? In decades. Mark Villar's leadership and Art Tugada's leadership in this area has led, as I mentioned earlier, to investments of higher than 5% of GDP in 2018. Now, that is unprecedented in decades. And that means also, as I mentioned earlier, the multiplier effects from those investments are certainly being felt everywhere, because we're not just talking about, and you mentioned what are the priorities. There are the 75 flagship projects, but that being said, there are also thousands of smaller projects all over the country in our provinces. So we've got road improvements, road widening projects, bridge strengthening, bridge replacement, health facilities, school buildings, and the like. All of these things are happening all over the country. I don't know if you've had the chance. Umiikot po ako ng Mindanao. At pag nasa Mindanao po ako, I like taking road trips para makita natin ano ba nangyayari. Kasi sabi nila, ang dami daw infrastructure projects. I wanted to see with my own eyes kung totoo ba. Kasi yung trabaho namin, makalikom ng pondo para dito sa mga projects na ito. And so in a span of a few hundred kilometers, you will find project after project after project. You will see it.
Na-traffic ba kayo?
Ha?
Na-traffic ba kayo?
Meron ding traffic sa Mindanao, pero not as bad
Because
as...
of the infrastructure projects.
Yes. Maybe Cagayan de Oro, my hometown. Maybe medyo lumalaban na sa Maynila at saka sa Cebu. No? But in terms of the infrastructure projects, luckily we were traveling on a Sunday. But guess what? Even on a Sunday afternoon, construction was ongoing. No? So yung sinasabi nila na 24/7, it looks like at least in some areas it's happening. Not just in Mindanao. I took a road trip in the La Union area as well, Nueva Ecija area, Pangasinan. Ang dami ring infrastructure projects na sabay-sabay nangyayari. But in terms of the largest connectivity investments, we're looking at ports, we're looking at improving our airports, we're looking at improving our seaports. There's one in Cagayan de Oro that was just launched, I believe. We're also looking at major investments that will ease the worst congestion in our large cities. Dito po sa atin, sa Metro Manila, part of the Skyway 3 project was just opened. No, may ramp na binuksan na bago. It's an extension. And then meron din po tayong Harbor Link. That one is very important kasi yung Harbor Link, truck-only highway po yan. So mababawasan po yung trucks dun sa mga thoroughfares na yung dinadaanan po natin on a day-to-day basis. We're also investing in rail systems. No, nandyan po ito po exciting ito. From Calamba all the way to Clark. A commuter rail system when the final alignment is done. Nag-uumpisa na po sila dun sa Clark to Malolos. Ito pong Clark to Malolos, yan po ay pinupondahan ng pinakamalaking project na inapprove ng ADB in its history. No? Pero ang mangyayari po ay maaari na pong mag-commuter in terms of a regular workday. Theoretically, if you live in Calamba, you can work in Clark and take the train every day pag natapos na po yung alignment na ito. Of course, there's the Mindanao Rail, there are some bus rapid transit projects, etc.
And that all redounds to the goal of taking out poverty. And I'm glad to hear that you're ahead of schedule when you said this government wants this country to be upper middle income country. Talk to us about that finer points, the proof points that we're well ahead of schedule. Do you have any anecdotal evidence or data that would prove that we're well ahead?
So yung atin pong pagiging upper middle income country, that is based on a World Bank classification. There's a level of gross national income. Yung gross national income po, parang GDP yan, pero kasama po yung income ng mga Pilipino na sa ibang bansa. No? So how much is the Philippines really producing and earning overall? At yung GNI threshold para po sa upper middle income status ay nasa mga $3,900 plus. Malapit na po tayo doon. Konti na lang ay aabot na po tayo sa threshold na yon. In fact, we should have graduated this year except tinaas yung threshold also this year. So nangyari, hahabol tayo dun sa higher threshold. But even the World Bank is saying we are well within reach of upper middle income country status. Pero ito po yung mahalaga dyan. Yung challenge po natin kasi is to double our economy every 10 years. That means growing at 7 to 8%. Ngayon, ang target po natin 6 to 7. Bakit po? Dahil ginagawa pa po natin yung infrastructure. We are still investing also in our workforce through universal healthcare, through free tuition in state universities and colleges, through improving the K-12 system. No? Pag ginawa po natin itong mga investment na ito at gawin natin ng mabuti, ang engine ng ekonomiya natin ay lalaki. Para po tayong nag-upgrade from a 1-liter engine to a 3-liter engine. Or, kunyari, air conditioner from X horsepower to 2X horsepower. Kasi, ibig sabihin, mas malaki na po yung ekonomiya and we need a stronger engine to drive it. Dalawa po ang kailangan para maging malakas ang ating ekonomiya, ang ating kakayanan para lumaki. Infrastructure and a world-class workforce. May isa pa po tayong kailangang isipin pagdating sa future prosperity sa Pilipinas. We are at a point where we are reaping, and we should continue reaping over the next 20 to 30 years, what is called the Demographic Dividend. Technical term po yan, pero simple lang yan. Ibig sabihin yan, the largest percentage or proportion of our population is of working age. Ang kaibahan po natin sa Japan at saka sa Korea, sila aging population na sila. Yung proportion na senior citizens and above, talagang lumalaki na. Tayo, wala pa po tayo doon. We are at the peak of the number of productive workers in our population. So what that means is we need to keep investing in our people as well. So it's not just the hard infrastructure. It's also education and healthcare and social protection. Over the next 30 years, we want to double our economy every 10 years. Pag gawin po natin yan, we will be a high-income country by 2040. Alam po ninyo, Cathy, if you don't mind, I'll share a personal thought. Nung nag-aaral po ako, pinalaki po ako ng mga pare, yung mga Heswita. Umuwi po ako sa bahay, pero sa school, mga pare ang nagpalaki sa amin. Sabi nila, kailangan daw ibaling yung ating ang ating mga kakayanan, yung ating effort sa mahihirap. No? To have a preferential option for the poor. To invest a lot of our best years to poverty reduction. Pero hindi ko po naisip noon na yung pinakamaganda na the best articulation, no, of this preferential option for the poor is to work toward a future where there is zero extreme poverty. No, zero extreme poverty by 2040. Kaya po natin, we are on the way, the fundamentals are in place, we have to stay the course and continue making the right investments.
Tony, we have about 2 minutes to go, and I know that there is another timeline investors are waiting for. It's a whole lot of work, but it's a promising one, the CTRP. There's package 2, 3, and then 4, and then may 2X pa. 2 plus.
2 plus.
2 plus. We haven't even gotten to that, and I appreciate that you outlined it. Give us the timeline. We have 3 years left. It took a lot of effort to pass the first 1A, yung package 1A. How much longer for each of these packages? What's the timeline for the finance department?
The
Yung
marching
pinaka-best
orders.
case scenario.
Yes, so the President has mentioned all the packages in the past 2 SONAs. So these are presidential directives that we take very seriously. The Secretary has told us to get everything passed by the end of the year.
Kaya?
Kaya. 2 plus, 3, 4, and 2. Lahat po na-file na.
In
And
that order or posibleng mauna ang 2 plus, 4, 2, 3?
Well, all of them are priorities, although the higher priority is placed on package 2, yung ating corporate income tax reform, at saka po yung alcohol excise adjustment para po sa universal healthcare. So those are the 2 higher priority among all of them, which are all high priority.
Just as a follow-up, because this week, after the State of the Nation address, the President signed into law the bill that would increase tobacco taxes. what impact would that have on your revenue collection and the impact it might have on tobacco companies and maybe the experience for the cigarette smokers here? Talaga bang humihinto sila sa paninigarilyo? I mean, what is the experience from your end?
The experience since 2012, when the Aquino administration passed the first sin tax law, is that there was really a reduction in smoking incidents. And yung prevalence po ng smoking, measurement po niyan, 15 years old and above. It was 28% in 2002. It went down to 22.7% by 2017. Kaso, humabol na po yung income ng ating mga kababayan at mga smokers. By 2018, it was 23%. Tumaas po ng konti. Gusto po natin gawin, tuloy-tuloy ang pagbaba hanggang 2022 na nasa 15% na lang yung smoking prevalence natin. What does that mean to smokers? That means starting January 1, 2020, it will be 10 pesos more plus VAT on the 10 pesos. So around 11 pesos and 20 centavos more per pack. Kung pwede na po kayong tumigil by then, since after New Year naman ng January 1, at pwede kayong mag-New Year's resolution, sana ho maitigil na natin. Kung hindi, magdagdag na lang po tayo ng ating contribution sa universal healthcare. Because as smokers, we also know from the medical professions and the medical experts that you will be accessing universal healthcare more in the future. Mas maraming mga sakit ang associated sa paninigarilyo. Kaya gusto po natin, for everybody, may UHC po tayo, Universal Healthcare, pero mas malaki na lang po ang contribution ng smokers. Pangalawa, drinkers. Alam naman po natin na may social function ang alcohol. We enjoy it from time to time for those of us who drink with our friends and our families. But wala rin hong health benefit ang alcohol. Although meron ngang social purpose. No? So what we want to do is those who will be contracting liver disease and related diseases from high consumption of alcohol, ay mas malaki rin po ang ambag sa universal healthcare dahil kayo rin naman po ang gagamit mas intensively dun sa mga health services in the future.
Okay, well, thank you so much for giving us a very optimistic view. That's a view that I'm going to hold on to. 6 to 7% growth for second quarter. Thank you, Tony Lambino
you,
of the
Kathy.
Finance Department. Thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the meal. I'm seeing it's quite healthy. Salmon. It's not anything with alcohol. All right,
Maraming
thank
salamat
you.
po.